Hello, and welcome to Kreepy Kulture, CM Life's scariest podcast, where we discuss horror movies, video games, music, and more. I'm your host, Stephanie Chipman.
And I'm your host, Tyler Clark. And today we're going to talk about A24 and some of the A24 horror movies that we've seen and enjoy, and a little bit about A24 as a studio.
And just for reference, A24 used to be A24 Films, but now they're just A24. They started up in 2012. They work in film and television. They work in production as well as distributing films. So it's kind of a little bit complicated, but they are the minds behind some of the really good modern horror movies that
And
we've
some
been
new
seeing.
stuff like Euphoria, right?
Yeah, the TV show. But we're not going to talk too much about that today. We're going to talk about the most popular horror movies from A24. So that's like The Witch.
The Witch. Which I have seen and you have not, sadly.
I have not.
We need to get on that. But The Witch is a very sort of different horror movie. It's kind of a horror movie for film fans and film geeks, which is right up both of our alleys, I think. And the whole movie was shot with natural light and only candlelight. And it's set in like colonial times in New England, and it follows a group of Puritans that are like too religious for their colony. Like they get kicked out because they're too religious. They believe so much. They believe like, I think it's Old Testament stuff, like everyone is sin, everyone lives in sin. I don't know. I'm not well versed in religion, but
Everyone's a sinner until you're not.
yeah, you have to
like
like
that.
repent.
Okay.
Stuff like that. You were born with sin and then you have to like live a good life and repent or you go to hell type thing. So they rejected their colony and they moved off on their own to a little cabin that they make right outside of the woods. And the woods is just like, there's like a clearing that they live in, and they made all of these buildings like from scratch the way that they would have been made back in the day.
Oh, that's so cool. I
The
love when
director
people do that.
specifically got like people who knew how to make the thatch roof and all of that stuff exactly to the period, and they all speak exactly like they would in the period. It's very immersive. And the movie basically just starts with them leaving their colony and moving out on their own. And it's very difficult living there in that time. So they have food to worry about. They have the cold, shelter, all of this. And it starts out with Thomasin, who is like the main girl, the main kid. It's two parents. She's the oldest. She has a younger brother. And then there's two younger siblings that are like, I want to say 5 or 6 or something.
Oh, goodness.
And then there's a baby. And Thomasin is playing with the baby, and she's doing like peekaboo. And like, it goes to her face, it goes back to the baby. It goes to her face, it goes back to the baby. It goes to her face, the baby is gone. The baby's gone, and she's right on like the cusp of the woods. So it just shows like this looming shot of the woods, and it's all these gray, cool colors because it's only natural light. And this is where the witch comes in. She stole the baby. You see her in like a red cloak that is like super satirized, so it like really breaks up and contrasts with the grays. And the witch takes the baby. And
is this where we say spoiler alert?
yeah, spoiler alert. I'm gonna stop here, but the baby dies. This is like the very, very beginning of the movie, so I don't feel too bad about it because the baby dies.
See, and this is this kind of plays into like my view of the A24 films and how they, to me, it feels like they have a formula. And the formula is a lot different than any of the other classic horror movie formulas, and even some of the modern ones. And they do tend to start, you know how like older films, when you first start watching them, like older horror films or any classic horror film, they always start really bright and happy. And it could be the kind of film that turns into a comedy.
Yeah.
Right? And then it turns into a horror. But the A24 films, they always kind of start that way, but more or less they start with something really traumatic.
Yes.
And something that's like legitimately scary. There's like an incident that's really sad and scary at first. And it's like, I feel like the movie is kind of like drawn around the incident that happens right away in the beginning of the film. So it's funny because I've never seen The Witch, and this is the first time that Tyler's told me this, and it's kind of playing into that formula that I feel like already existed.
I definitely agree. A lot of them, they deal with some heavy stuff.
Oh, definitely.
Like death of children, death of like a lot of death.
Especially family members.
And the actors and actresses like portray it fantastically. Because like when this baby dies, honestly, they're more afraid, or they're more like upset that the baby's going to hell. It never had time to be like baptized. It never had time to like I don't know the word, but like become repent for their sins. Mm-hmm. So they're more upset. It's like religious like horror. It's weird, but it is very interesting.
I think if you believe that firmly, like it sounds like they did, then they're probably like, well, at least we'll be able to see our child when we go to heaven, when we die. But having to accept that they'll never see them again because the child has to go to hell.
Yeah.
So it's probably that aspect of it. It's like, I won't be able to spend eternity with our child. So that's sad. So I can see how that kind of like takes their focus.
Yeah, and there is no like slasher in this movie. The witch is not out there just murdering people. It is very like subdued. It's more psychological, which A24 is very well known for. Like it handles what happens to a person once they've had so much trauma. And I guess spoilers. Are we doing spoilers?
I think we're going to talk about 3 movies today. If you haven't seen them, you should really watch them before this, I think.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to the films. And there's a lot of twists and turns. And I feel like it wouldn't be the same experience. Unless you fully intend not to watch them, or these aren't the kind of films you want to watch. I suggest watching them first. And that's kind of why we're not doing a final kill today. So.
Yeah. Definitely go watch them. Go watch The Witch. Go watch Midsummer. Go watch Hereditary. They're fantastic films, but there is some like psychological stuff there that it could be uneasy for people with depression, people with like mental illness. So if you have that issue and you intend on not watching it, you could just listen and we will talk about it. And it's less shocking that way. Or if you don't have the time to watch the movies, we'll just discuss them.
Well, and I think one of the things is like, it's one thing to like have that full experience to watch them with not knowing anything up front, because I think that would be a better way if you're like a horror movie lover like we are. But if you want to watch these and not be so surprised, afraid, and have that tension, because a lot of the fear comes from the tension of not knowing, then maybe this would be actually be better for you.
Yeah, some people don't enjoy being like terrified or scared, but we do. So
we don't want to ruin that for you.
Yeah, we don't want to ruin that if you're in that camp. But
well, it's hard for us to talk about the films without giving away.
So big spoiler warning. Go watch the movies. Come back. Listen to the discussion. Maybe learn something about it.
And we'll wait here.
Go.
We'll be right here.
All right, back to The Witch. So, after the baby died, or after the baby's taken.
So, there's no proof of the baby died.
There is proof.
Okay.
There is a scene. It is kind of awful.
I mean to the parents.
To the parents, no. They think a wolf took the baby throughout the film.
Oh, okay.
They don't know there's a witch. They don't know anything. The baby's just gone. And they blame Thomason. But we see in a scene where there's a naked old woman, which is an A24 like staple at this point. Most of their horror movies have naked old people. But yeah, she like grinds up the baby and uses its blood to rub on her broomstick and all over her body to fly, which is like folklore. That is how witches used to do things. They would rub it on themselves to make themselves young, which we'll see later in the movie. But throughout this movie, we go like back to the farm where the family is trying to cultivate crops and stuff, and it's not turning out well. We see the corn is rotting. We see a lot of stuff. She goes to milk one of the goats, and blood comes out. And throughout this whole time, there is one goat, a completely black goat with horns, called Black Phillip. Black Phillip is great. I actually got a friend of mine a plush of Black Phillip.
That's amazing.
But Black Phillip, we see, is supposedly whispering to the two young children, the 5 and 6-year-old. They say that Black Phillip is like telling them things. And, spoiler, later on in the movie, Black Phillip is the devil. He's literally the devil, a goat, a black goat. And I'll skip some of the middle part because you haven't seen it. I don't want to spoil all of it for you. But in the end, it is sort of like a happy ending. Thomason makes a pact with the goat, the devil, and becomes a witch herself. And the last scene of the movie, she walks up on a whole bonfire and a bunch of witches yelling and singing naked and dancing around a fire, and she walks up and they all start floating. And that's the final scene. And she's happy and she's smiling.
How many members of her family die?
All of them.
I figured, yeah.
Yeah.
After seeing the other two films, I kind of figured.
You want to talk formula? This is very Midsummer.
It is very Midsummer because I feel like a lot of the A24 films end kind of open-endedly.
Yes.
It's not always like, and you say like a happy ending. It's just an atypical ending.
It's a
for
happy
horror
ending
film.
To certain people.
Yeah, I mean,
To her, sure, she's happy now. She gets to, the devil, the goat, asks if she wants to live deliciously. And she says yes, and she goes off, and she gets to be a witch and fly around and travel. And she's happy, and she's smiling. And so that's like a win for her. Her family is dead. She has now made a pact with the devil. Not a good ending for some other people. I'm sure a lot of religious people would say, no, that is a horrible ending. This is the bad ending. But to her, that's not bad. At least she's happy in the end. I don't know. Depends on how you look at it.
That's true. That's true. And it's similar to Midsummer, which, starts off with a really tragic death. There's a character. She's dating a guy who doesn't really want to date her. He thinks that she's a little too much.
Yeah, that is a very, stale, bad relationship. And they handle that so well, I feel like. Portrayed through the movie, the stale relationship where it's like the guy really wants to leave but kind of can't.
He feels like he can't because she emotionally relies on him.
Yes.
But that's, and I feel very strongly against Christian, the character, because he could have left at any time. Just be honest with people. I get that he felt guilty, but that's not helping anybody.
Yeah.
But you can see how strongly that we feel about this relationship, even though it, it gets introduced super early into the film. It shouldn't be so significant, but it very much is significant to the film. And
It's I like that you said that you feel strongly against him, because there is like two sides of that. Cuz like there are times where it's like, wow, Christian is the worst. But then there's other times where it's like, well, he's also kind of trapped, because we see at the very beginning that this relationship sucks. He should break up with her. And then she gets like some emails from her sister, who we find out is bipolar, and we later find out has killed herself and her parents.
and then, it leaves the character.
She is like completely destroyed, and you get a scene where she calls him on the phone and is just like hyperventilating and like wailing. Fantastic acting.
Oh yeah, and I think they talk about this as part of the formula, that the way that the characters grieve is very like scary, but it feels more real. It feels more raw.
I feel like it's accurate, but it's not how
from
it
person to
should
person.
be. Yeah.
But and the character in this film, she has a lot of breakdowns. She has a lot of like anxiety overload, like anxiety attacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those are really interesting, I feel, because it's periodic throughout the film. Whenever something bad happens, she has to go be by herself and kind of freak out. And I feel like it's kind of nice to see that in a film. I mean, that's kind of a weird thing to say, but it feels more real. I mean, a lot of these films, a lot of horror films I don't feel like they accurately display what anxiety and grief and mental illness looks like sometimes. And I definitely feel like A24 has a better crack at it than any other films.
Especially
I've seen.
Midsummer. Like, this one handles it flawlessly, I feel like.
You feel it with her. You
Yeah.
feel her pain. You see her pain. And you don't necessarily understand her relationship with her family, but you do feel how hard it is for her. But I feel like it still doesn't give Christian a pass.
Yes. But, like,
not break up
right
with her.
after that happens, he sort of can't, for fear of, like, her doing something or anything like that. Also, just, like, not the nicest move after she just loses, like, 3 pivotal, like, points in her family. So there is a sense in there that he's a little bit trapped. But, so they're going to Finland on a trip. Sweden, sorry, my bad.
I just watched it the other day. That's what I know.
They're going to Sweden with Pele, who is one of their friends. He's from there. It's like a little village. And they're going there one of the guys is going there for his thesis.
Yeah, it's to study their midsummer festivities. And I believe that's when the sun is pretty much out all the time.
Yes.
Because of the seasons. It only gets dark for like a couple hours at a time. So they take advantage of the sunlight and they celebrate with festivities and stuff.
Yeah.
Very traditional and to their culture.
It's their every 90-year festival.
Yes, I thought that was odd, the 90 years. I was like, okay.
But the May Queen thing happens every year.
Yeah.
So there's a difference in there. But, yeah, so they go there, and they instantly start doing psychedelic drugs.
Oh, yeah. As soon as they get there, they're like, hey, you want some mushrooms?
Which, grief-stricken main character girls should not be doing psychedelic drugs.
Well, and to clarify, Christian never wanted her there. He wanted
True.
to go without her, and he wasn't even going to tell her he was leaving.
Yes, he is very non-confrontational, just like he would rather it just go up in flames than confront her and tell her what's going on.
I'd rather, I mean, the movie would have played it a lot differently if Christian just would have been like, I still want to be here for you, but I can't be in a relationship with you anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I understand that I don't know what I would do in that situation. That sounds horrific. But you need somebody who actually cares about you, or you're never going to really get over something.
Which Pele says to her.
Yeah, there we go.
Do you
really
feel held?
held by him? Yes, I love how you remembered that. Do you truly feel held by him?
And that is like this is a cult. The people here, this is like a cult. And him doing that and planting the seeds, because he says, I feel held here. Do you feel held by him? He's like sort of putting a wedge between her and her boyfriend and bringing her and the community and even Pele himself closer.
Oh, definitely. And he actively tries to get Christian to hook up with his sister, his younger sister.
It's not his actual sister. It's his sister in the sense that they're a community.
Yeah.
But, like, yes. You see a lot of, like, cult tactics, like indoctrination.
And separating them.
Mm-hmm.
And then using their culture and their, like, rituals as, like, hey, this is what we do. This is, like, how we get through things. It's different than how your society deals with things. And even in ways where it just makes you uncomfortable. I know there's a lot to it. It's the kind of film that really makes you feel along with them. And there's a lot of little detail things. Like, there's like a scene where they show like a love story on some blanket weavings. And if you pay attention as they walk by, you can kind of see how it plays out. And it's essentially this woman is like using these like rituals to attract her like crush. And they're weird.
Yeah.
And I know one of them, I think she bleeds into his drink.
What it is it's like a love ritual.
Yeah.
And you see this on a tapestry, and then it's explained later where the female puts her pubic hair in a dish, a pie, and also her menstrual blood in his drink.
And there is a scene where there's a multitudes of scenes of them like eating together.
Yes.
And it's always outside in like banquet style. And there's one of the scenes where you just can see that his drink is noticeably darker than everyone else's.
He got the pink lemonade and everyone else got the regular.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like. And that's all I could think about the whole time was the tapestry, and nobody talks about it.
He pulls out a hair.
Yeah, but nobody talks about the drink. And I feel like that's something that we as the audience noticed right away. But it's kind of interesting because a lot of horror films, they go for obvious things, and they usually will point things out. Whereas A24 makes you work for it. It makes you pay attention to those details and be like, oh, I remember the drink. I remember the pube, the hair.
Yeah. And later on, he goes like, I think she put a pube in my drink. And like one of the elder ladies is like, yeah, that's about right. It's like, okay.
Lovely.
So this is normal. But one really big part of this is they get to see the Atastupa, which is a ritual where I think it's age like 70?
72?
72, where that's the end of your life cycle in terms of this community. They believe that 72 is like when you're done. When you're too old and you become a burden on the rest of the community, so you give your life back to the community for new people to be born.
It's awesome. Gotta be there. It's gross.
They jump off a cliff.
And none of the like people visiting know that it's about to happen. And there's like this moment where the first woman is about to jump and she makes eye contact with the main character. And then she just jumps. And I hate calling her the main character.
Yes.
Her name is, what is her name?
It is Danny.
Danny. I was like, it's like a unisex name.
She's played by Florence Pugh.
And I gotta say, she's got this look to her that when she's upset about something, she kind of does this like overly dramatic frown. But I feel that sometimes when we're sad, we do kind of like unintentionally just frown. And you can really feel that emotion. It doesn't feel like overacting at all with her.
She does a fantastic job.
She's wonderful, and you really see it through her eyes always. And when she experiences that first death, when the woman hits the rocks and her face just obliterates,
It is
basically.
gory. This scene is gory as all hell. And the other people in the community don't mind. They don't care because it's like, or not that they don't care, but this is like an elder giving their life. This is their choice, and this is like honorable, and they're like happy.
And I think one of the elder women, when they all tried to leave after that because they were freaked out, and one of the elder women was like, this is how we deal with older people. And it's
Yeah.
like, they don't have to suffer. They don't have to die of illness. They don't get sick and old and forget things. They get to give their life willingly instead of fade. And she's like, when I'm that age, I will be happy to do this as well.
Yes, but it's not just the woman that jumps. There's an old man as well.
Oh, yeah.
And he takes the pencil dive. And he breaks his legs, and he does not die on impact. And right before this scene, you see a man holding a giant mallet. So 4 people come out, and they smack his head with the mallet. Sort of like double tap, take him down. And like each of the 4 people takes a swing at him to share the burden, I think it was.
Even though he pretty much dies in the first whack.
Yes, he dies in the first whack, but they all take a crack at him. And it is like a giant hammer. It is massive. And all of the people, when he takes the pencil dive and doesn't die, he's like yelling and screaming. All the people scream with him to share in his pain.
Yeah, they reflect his pain. And that's
Yes.
another theme throughout Midsummer is there's like a reflection of people's emotions.
Yeah, they don't say like, oh, it's fine. They yell with you, sort of to make you feel validated.
There's such an oddity to the film because the imagery is really bright and colorful and just vibrant. It's like almost like hippie love.
This is a very like beautiful movie.
Yeah, oh yeah, and it's so strange. And I was telling Tyler I had a hard time sleeping last night, and I was getting all spooked out. But it's like I can't be afraid of Midsummer. You can't. It's not a movie you have nightmares about.
You can be afraid of the idea of Midsummer.
But it's not like, oh, they're coming to my house. It's like, to be afraid of Midsummer, you'd have to be living in a Swedish cult,
Yeah.
It's not, it's a very specific kind of horror. And almost, it's scary in different ways. And like I said, most of the fear from A24 happens with suspense leading up to the events. And just kind of the way that after something horrible happens, there's like a pause where you kind of like left to catch up and left to like, you're just reeling because you didn't see it coming, which is the opposite of how horror movies usually make me feel, where I'm always trying to see what's coming.
Yeah, this one sort of blindsides you sometimes. Like, or when they're on there and you know that old person's going to jump, but it still hits. It's still pretty rough. Because I don't know. You don't expect the gore. Nothing has happened yet, and then boom. It's more just emotional.
It is. Like I said, it kind of gives you a second. It makes you feel things along with Danny. There's kind of like this, everybody's muted for a second. Like she's just staring, and like you can see her like gears barely turning, just unable to comprehend. And I feel like you experience those moments with her. And that's, I don't know, they do it in a really special way that makes you feel for her. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, she just went through something so traumatic and now she just saw that. That is the opposite of what she needed. And you feel that concern for her too.
And Christian's friend knew about it. He's the one that's there for his thesis. He doesn't care about Danny. He doesn't care about Christian. He doesn't care about any of the drama going on. He is only there for academic purposes. He is studying these people. And he knew what the Atastupa was and did not tell her, which is a horrible move. Don't tell the, like, grieving person that some people are going to jump off a cliff. Really? But, yeah, after this, I think, is when we see the other friend. I think Mark, right? I think his name is Mark.
Oh, it's the kid from Meet the Millers or whatever.
Yes, it is Mark. They see the old people get burned and their ashes get put on this dying tree, this spiritual tree, and is where all the ancestors go. They put all of the ashes of the ancestors on this tree. And he decides to go pee on the tree.
Like an idiot.
Yeah, he doesn't see that they put their ancestors there. He's just like, oh, this tree, I'll go pee on it. And then some very angry man comes over and like starts yelling at him. Later, we see him pulled aside. He disappears.
Well, I think Mark was the only person who didn't attend the cliff scene because he was sleeping.
Yes.
And he was angry that he didn't get to attend it, which... Why?
Yeah.
It's just weird how the film kind of glosses over that scene afterwards. It makes you feel like, oh, well, it's cultural, so it's not a big deal, right? It kind of does feel like that. And even Christian, he doesn't seem to care. He really doesn't. I feel like he kind of like rationalized it to Danny.
Yeah.
And it was really odd. I was like, how do you rationalize that? Whereas like the British couple who was also invited, they were like, I'm leaving.
Yeah, they try to leave. And they are not seen again.
Yeah,
alive.
they left. And I'm doing finger quotes over here. That's what they were told.
The community tells them, oh, they left in a truck. So...
Mysterious things start happening. People start disappearing.
Mark is gone. He gets led away by a girl who he thinks he's going to have sex with. That is not what happens. He gets skinned. And the man that was very angry at him for the tree thing wears his skin and kills Josh, who is the guy who is he's doing his thesis. He kills Josh, who has broken in to read their like sacred text and take pictures of it.
Which he knows he's not allowed to do.
Yes, they tell him specifically not to do that. And so both of them die, and then the community tells them that basically they say that they stole the book and ran away. That's what we're led to believe. They said that the book has been stolen, and then they come up to them and they're like, well, both of your friends are missing and our book is stolen. Do you know anything about this? When in actuality,
like, no.
They killed them.
Well, then Christian, he wants to write his thesis on it.
Yes.
Which made Josh mad. And then, so Christian was kind of glad that Josh was gone. And I don't know, there's a lot of other things that happen. There's a lot of really, really detail-oriented
Yeah, we can't get
scenes.
into like all of it, but we're trying to spark notes.
Let me, not that we literally have spark notes open or anything, but I think the next big thing that happens is that Dany gets crowned the queen.
Yes, she gets May Queen because they dance around the maypole and she's the last one standing. So she gets crowned. She has to go bless the crops and stuff. She gets her own little chariot.
Oh, yeah, while blessing the crops.
And Christian gets drugs again.
And he gets laid.
Okay. He gets drugged beyond belief. And then they give him more drugs. And then they take him in there and they're like, this girl, this redhead who...
She's the one who'd been crushing on him and bleeding into his cup and stuff.
She did her whole little ritual. And then the elders are like, because the elders have to approve on mating for the good of the gene pool. And they've approved it. And basically he gets led into this room. I would say this constitutes like rape.
Is it?
Because he is high. He is gone. He doesn't know what's going on.
I agree to a degree, but I also think that under normal circumstances, he would have slept with her. He was looking at her throughout the day. He was considering her as an option throughout the entire film. And I'm not saying that he wasn't drugged and raped. I agree with that. I just think that if it had been a normal circumstance, he probably would have slept with her anyway.
Yes.
But in this situation, I don't think he normally would have done that because of how weird the ritual was.
Yes, it is the most awkward sex scene in all of film history, I think.
It makes me want to die watching
There are
it.
like 5 old naked women standing there.
There's way more than 5.
It's like 10, maybe.
Yeah. There's like almost all of the women in the tribe.
Yeah, one of them leans down to hold the girl's hand while it's happening, and some old
Well,
lady comes behind him and pushes his butt.
it's really weird.
It is
She
so
also
weird.
sings to him.
Yes, they're
Sings to
all.
both of them.
Oh no, they do like the moaning thing.
Oh, gross.
They moan like with the girl. It's weird. It is a horrific scene, and Danny comes and looks through the comically large keyhole and sees this and just starts freaking out.
Oh, she has
And
another scream cry.
she has another scream cry, but the cult is there with her, scream crying with her.
Yeah, all the other girls who
They make her
competed.
feel like validated.
Yeah, it's a super weird scene. I think it's the scene that people have referred to as like weird. They're like, oh, it hasn't gotten weird. Like, I feel like other people that are familiar with the film are like, oh, that's the weird scene, and it definitely is. It's the nudity is like strange, and
Yes.
I don't know. They don't cover anything. They don't hide anything from you, really. It's just such an uncomfortable scene to watch, and you really do feel it through a drugged haze, just like
Yes.
Christian's dealing with it.
And then afterwards, Christian runs out fully naked, and he goes into this barn where he sees the Blood Eagle. It is one of the British guys. It's the British guy.
I thought it was the
And-
British girl.
Was it? I don't know. I thought it was the guy, and his back has been cut open, and his lungs make up like wings behind him. It's called the Blood Eagle.
I've never heard that. That's cool.
It's like a Swedish thing or something. I don't know. But
He was still breathing.
it was still breathing, but I don't think so. I think it was the drugs, because throughout this, there's a lot of, you get to see what the drugs do. And apparently it's been like heralded as very accurate for psychedelic drugs. I've never done them. I don't plan on doing them ever, especially after this movie, but like it's pretty intense. And then they blow more drugs in his face and he gets knocked out. And then he wakes up and he is unable to move
Or talk.
or talk. And they start talking about this ritual where they have to sacrifice, I think it's
9 people.
9 people
For every 10 years.
every 10 years. Yes.
I didn't put that together until you were saying the 90 years thing earlier, and I was like, oh, 9 people, 90 years.
That makes sense. Yeah. So they kill these people, and they've already got their 2 elders. They've got the...
They don't just have to kill outsiders, they have to kill people within their group as well, but they pretty much do it willingly, so.
Yeah, so they got the 2 British people. They've got Mark, Josh. Then they've got Pele's brother, Ingmar. And then the guy that killed Mark. And then the 2 elders. Did I say that? Yes. No, I didn't say the 2 elders yet. So there's one more. And the one more is she gets to pick either Christian, her boyfriend who she just saw cheat on her, and who has been the worst this whole time, or some random guy in the community.
It was a woman.
Was it a woman?
It was a woman.
Oh. Just some random person.
But she gets that honor because she's the queen.
Yes.
You know?
And who knows? She picks her boyfriend, now ex-boyfriend.
Why did I smile through that whole scene? I was like, yes, kill the boyfriend.
Exactly. It's sort of like a good feeling, which is awful, but like good.
And I don't know, as you watch the building burn and the people who are
Yeah,
living
they put him
inside,
in a building and they put him in a dead bear. It's like he's the beast and they're like burning him. But they put all of those people in this big like cool golden building and then they burn it down. And then the ending shot is her smiling as they jump around for joy.
You know, I was thinking about how Pele said that his parents died in a fire.
Oh,
I don't know if that's related, but
maybe. No, I don't think so, because he talks about how the community took him in
I don't know.
afterwards. Who knows?
But yeah, interesting film. You can kind of feel towards the end that she smiles for the first time at the very end of the film, and you feel that, okay, she's part of it now. She has shared
she's
pain
in the
with
cult.
them. I don't blame her. She's alone in the world.
Yeah, and it's another one of those happy ending, maybe? Who knows?
Weirdly happy ending.
Yeah, so Next, we can blow through Hereditary.
It's difficult to blow through a movie like that, but
Yes. But, like, again, we'll spark note it, sort of our version of that.
well, and I wanted to say this earlier, but when I first started, I watched Hereditary and Midsummer back to back, which is a weird experience. But I definitely had heard a lot about both films way before ever watching them, and I felt like people were definitely surprised. People were, I don't know, I feel like people thought they were messed up films, and I didn't experience that level of like messed upness, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I think you fell victim to the overhype thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I didn't really, like, listen to a lot before watching these films. So I didn't know. And I don't know. As a horror fan, you are, like, a Saw fan. You've seen a lot of, like, the messed up horror movies. All right. And now we're going to talk about Hereditary. But we're not going to go super into spoilers. We're going to touch on it a little bit. But sort of a spoiler-free review. Because we want you to see this movie. There's lots of shocking parts in there that we don't want to spoil for you. But the movie starts with an obituary of this grandma who has died. And you get to know the family, and it is a wife, her husband, their son who is in high school, I think. He seems older.
Like 16, 17.
Yes, and then a younger daughter who is
It's got to be in middle school, like
Middle school
12
around.
maybe. Younger.
yes, and it is very like emotionally distant family. They don't seem super like lovey-dovey on each other.
There's clearly some baggage
Yes.
up front. It just seems, at first I think you really believe that it's because of the grief from
Yeah.
losing their grandmother, but there's other reasons behind that feeling that the film wants you to experience.
Well, we're led to believe that like the mother and her mother, the grandmother, didn't really get along. They were strained. Later on, she says that they had a strained relationship. And the older of the children, the dad comes in and he asks like if he's okay, and he says, "Yeah." He doesn't really care.
Yeah.
So he didn't have like a really close relationship with the grandma.
Well, and that's tough too when, it's a teenage boy. So how much are you going to get out of that kid
Yeah.
in
and
general? I don't know if you've had a conversation with a 16-year-old boy, but
I've been one, so I sort of understand that. But and then the dad like sort of agrees with him and like understands that, yeah, I mean, he wasn't as close. But the younger girl, the younger child, she was grandma's favorite, as we find out. And she is very upset by this. Like, and the younger child, she's a little off. She does this clicking throughout the movie. It's a little,
yeah, just like a little click of the tongue.
which becomes a theme like throughout, like that you hear the clicking a lot. And then some weird stuff starts happening.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest parts about this film, and that kind of plays into what I believe kind of plays into this A24 little script or whatever, there's just like a lot of tension building, a lot of getting to know these characters and making assumptions that the movie rips away from you later. So I feel like there's, up front, we're talking about, a death, like a grandmother that died, and A24 always wants to start with these like kind of darker themes and then makes you comfortable again. But it's still building the tension. You can still feel that there's something coming.
It
but you
is
don't know
definitely
what
like
it
a
is.
roller coaster effect. Like you're going up the hill, and it's that little ratchety part where it's like click, 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 and then you go down. There's a downhill part, and it is like quick.
It's steep.
It is steep. It happens before you know it, and which I think goes for a lot of A24 films, but I feel it in this one a lot more.
Well, and I definitely A24 films really have a way of like pausing, like kind of being more realistic about the way that we process emotions. So something traumatic happens and there's this pause, and it's almost like too long, but it's like this recognition of overwhelming emotions that in the moment, this is probably how you would act. You would take a second to just even register that something horrible happened. And I don't know, they just have that way that they can kind of show that through film, how something feels.
It handles grief, specifically the mother's grief, very well because she doesn't know why she's sad. Like, she's sad, but she didn't have a great relationship with her mother. So she's sad, but it's confusing sad.
She said she did love her.
She did, but she says it in, like, after a monologue about how, like, a whole bunch of stuff had gone down. And it's like, it's sort of like, I love her, but type thing.
Oh, and there's a lot of disconnection within the family, and she goes to like a grief counseling session, but lies about it to her family and to her husband, which I thought was unusual. Like, why would you lie about grief counseling? It's not like she was going to AA meetings. It's not like she's an alcoholic.
Well, she says at that grief counseling meeting that she doesn't want to put this on her family, and she doesn't even know if they could help her or if they would.
But, I mean, lying about getting help is just such a strange thing to lie about, and it just shows a massive disconnection. And not relying on your family to help you get through grief seems like an odd reaction. So there's a lot about this film that really attacks the whole mental, emotional reaction to death in general. And I kind of liked it.
Yeah, whereas, like, Midsummer tackles death in a whole different way of more like celebrating it, showing a different perspective on death. This is more one that we can all just, this movie's real, and it's easy to empathize with, I feel like.
Definitely. And again, we see some of those like crying scenes with the mother where she's more like screaming, crying, just acting the way that I feel like would be expected. You know, a lot of movies
It's
really
like
cover that up.
animalistic, just
Yeah.
crying.
It's you feel with her. You feel that moment, and it makes you want to cry, and it makes you see her situation in a much different way, a much more personal way. So, like, I'm just saying that A24 really does approach emotions very literally and very realistically, in my opinion.
I agree, yeah. A24, it's not just like some horror movies that are great, like The Conjuring and stuff like that. They handle fear, but not like that just like animalistic emotion, like fight or flight, just crying. It's more raw in an A24 film. I'm very excited to see X, the new one, that is in theaters now. Neither of us have seen it. I hope to see it soon.
Yeah, I heard that they go to shoot an X-rated movie in the woods, and scary things happen.
And in the trailer, we see already there is a naked old lady.
Follows the
A24
formula.
classic. I'm just going to tell you right now, Midsummer had a naked old lady. Hereditary, naked old lady. Multiple naked old ladies. What's more horrifying than that?
And if you really want to watch more of these films, a lot of them are on Showtime right now. If you have Showtime.
Or just like rent them on Vudu, find them elsewhere. Some other ones, there's The Lighthouse, which Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson just kind of go insane on an island off the coast. It is a lighthouse island. They just are lighthouse keepers. That movie is a weird trip. It is shot in like a perfect square, so it doesn't fill up your TV, and it's black and white. It is just an odd... That one's like less approachable than most A24 films. It is definitely a film for film people.
I feel like a lot of these are. They approach it in a way that is unusual even for horror films.
Yes. I mean, like The Witch shot only with natural light and candlelight. It's very film things that like film people would like. If you love movies, you're gonna like these movies. They're great. The weird one, Lamb. I don't even know how to explain that movie. It's a weird little half lamb, half baby that they adopt, and that's it. There's more to it. I don't want to spoil that one. It's just odd. It's sort of a trip. All of these movies are, but that one has a weird lamb baby, so.
What was the new one that was just in theaters as well? Well, I know that A24 has Men coming out shortly, I think next month. And then they said Everything All at Once, or All Things Everything All at Once. Is that what it's called?
Oh,
That
yeah,
one
yeah,
just
yeah.
came
The
out.
multiverse sort of movie thing.
I've heard that's more of a comedy.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting film that they also did.
They do more than horror.
Yes.
They do, I think what they're just most known for is producing and getting out indie films. Giving indie films a budget that they can work with and just make cool stuff that you won't see in like just the mainstream.
Well, and yeah, even as far as horror movies, they're unique. I love the new approach. If you're into horror films and you want something different, this is where it's at. Like you can really find something that's, I don't know, just not following that same formula, that slasher formula. It really cuts that in half and puts it on its head.
And they do have gore. They are somewhat gory. Some of them, it's like, it's realistic and grotesque, but it's not like a Saw movie. It's not just like torture porn, gore everywhere, which is not Saw movies, I guess. But like, you're a Saw fan.
I know.
I'm not trying to.
I watched Spiral last night too, so I'm just like all spicy about it.
But these are just very realistic. Not in the sense that some witch is going to come out and take your baby, more in the sense that like you could see this happening if you were in this world. It's very real and down to earth.
And emotionally honest.
Yes.
More emotionally realistic. And in that way, it makes it more relatable. Because you felt these emotions in a less like dramatic, kind of normal theatrical way. Yeah. Good films. If you want to watch something a little bit different, I'd go right and say watch Hereditary. Go for it.
I'd say Hereditary is probably the best. I don't know. It's not my favorite. I don't think. I think I like The Witch more.
I still need to see it.
You do.
Keep thinking about Black Phillip.
Black Phillip's great. Yeah, I mean, The Witch is probably my favorite, but I'd say Hereditary is the most, like, if you're looking for a horror movie, watch Hereditary.
It's a great introduction into A24 films. It's such an awful way to put it because it is such a brutal movie, but yeah, if you want to kind of understand what the formula looks like, you can kind of get it through that film and kind of understand that it's unpredictable and a building of suspense.
And they're all different directors.
Yeah, I feel bad for kind of like...
It's not like a formula in the sense that they're like, A24 is like, here, director, take this, make the movie. It's more just they happen to do this, I think.
Yeah, and you can see similarities. And I'm picking up on them pretty quickly early on, just picking up on the similarities of how emotions displayed and how they kind of flip it on its head and bring a traumatic incident into like the first few minutes of the film and then make you relax again, only to bring you back to that scary place at the end. There's kind of a way in which there's similar elements to them. I'm not saying that they're following an exact formula or anything of that nature, but there is similarities. And if you see a few of them, you'll start picking up on them as well. But yeah, we're not doing a final kill today.
It's Hereditary.
Yeah.
Go watch Hereditary.
We're doing a united final kill.
Yes.
Watch Hereditary. You'll like it.
Go down the rabbit hole. Watch all the A24 horror films. Branch out. Watch some of their non-horror films. I mean, they're all good.
Yeah, support the indie artists out there. And it's on Showtime, not a sponsor. Just letting you know.
I wish.
Yeah, for real. Showtime, please sponsor us.
Please. A24. We've
Well-
shilled you for a whole episode. Please.
We love you, please. We're big fans. Well, thank you so much for joining us for our discussion of A24 films. And next week we'll talk about other scary stuff. Not next week, but the week after. We'll talk about more scary stuff.
Yes.
And we hope we didn't scare you too much.
Go follow us on Instagram at Kreepy_Kulture, both with K's. And don't say you'll be right back, because this is a horror movie, baby, and you know you won't be back. Come on.
I'll be right back. Ha 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 ha.